Hi, welcome to the Small Town Life Podcast right here on the Studio 25 Podcast Network. I'm your host, Scott Kinville, and we have got a great show lined up for you today. Before I bring in my guest, though, I want to bring in my co-host, my producer, my partner in crime, Detention Dave Warner.
You know, I was just about to ask you what nickname I was going to have for this show.
I needed a segue to our guest, so...
Okay, I've got a message for the principal. I'll give him the same one he got yesterday, but we're on camera.
That's okay. That's okay. All right, well, now that I said Detention Dave Warner, now I can let the cat out of the bag as to who the guest is. Our guest is the retiring principal of Benton Hall Academy here in Little Falls, a local legend, a guy that everybody loves, Mr. Joe Long.
Oh,
Joe, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, too, Dave. It's my honor. I've never been podcasted before, so it's an honor for me.
Well, you're a natural already, so I mean, that's...
He's never been podcasted. I'm trying to figure out what that means.
I don't know.
So, Joe, I mean, we're here on a Wednesday afternoon.
Yep.
Thank you for taking the time off from school to come over.
I snuck out.
But you're retiring, so you can do whatever you want.
Well, don't say that too loud.
Yeah. Don't worry, we know your boss, too.
Yes, he's a good guy, too. Yes, he is.
So when is the official retirement taking place?
The actual retirement, my date is actually the start of September, but I've made it, I've got enough time, so I'm going to probably the end of July. That'll be when I walk out the doors of BHA, beloved BHA for the last time, probably.
And I'll tell you, there's a lot of sad people about that because so many people, not only in this city, but throughout the valley, love you. Well, I've never heard a bad word said about Joe Long, and that's a very difficult thing to do. It really is.
I could probably give you some names of people who would, but I won't.
You know, I can come up with some bad names right here. Just give me a couple minutes.
Dave's probably got a couple. But it's
so that's why he's Detention Dave,
Detention Dave.
Oh, God.
I love the valley. I love this city. I grew up here. So it's just been such an honor for me. It went by so quick, and that's what, but I love the area. And I think I love the people. So that's, big and small.
Sure. So let's talk about that. Where you grew up? You said you grew up here.
I did.
Went to school here?
Yeah, I did. I grew up on the west end of Little Falls on Webster Street. Born in, I'll say that. Let me tell you when I was born, 1957. So everybody out there do math.
Young guy.
I always say, I won't say who's older than me. Joe Biden. That's the only guy I know. Sorry. But I like Joe Biden. But anyway, so that being said, but I grew up here. I went to school at St. Mary's Academy, which is now the Academy Apartments. I was through K through 8, but there was no high school then. Youngest of 5 kids, my father, Dan, my mother, Margaret. My father was he was city clerk here for the last part of his career. He worked at Snyder's Bike Manufacturing, worked in the office. My mother she worked at Salada Tea, but she also was a housewife raising 5 pretty rowdy children. So I was just always honored to live here and have a great family, great background, great friends. And, it's just where I learned how to be I guess I grew into being a young man, here, and sure. I'm still doing that, I guess.
Except you're not young anymore.
Not young anymore. That's the only part.
So obviously growing up here in the 60s and the 70s, I mean, it's definitely a different place from what it is today, for better or for worse. Mm-hmm. What are some of your memories of growing up in Little Falls from the 60s and 70s?
I do remember, holy cow, I go way back, into the 60s and, in the 70s. And in the 60s, it was something. There were a lot of factories here, a lot of industry. But the industry eventually, like the whole valley, it changed, it transformed. Mm-hmm. I always remember as a kid looking for a place to either have a ball game or to go fishing. Or when I drove up today out here, I used to catch frogs with my friends. There used to be a frog pond right over, not far, about a quarter mile down the street here. And it was kind of like out of Andy of Mayberry kind of a thing, which I really, I never forgot that. And I want our kids to have that experience, to have like fun, to be kids, to be young, and because you're only young once, and I just enjoy that, and I have fond memories of that. Going in the woods, I didn't have a backyard on Webster Street. The backyard were
a lot of woods over there.
Miles of woods, which we pretty much lived in, and built forts and tore them down and chased each other through the woods, and it was just fun, riding our bikes and things like that. The ball, playing Little League up at I tell the kids I play on, there's more fields up there now, but the field that I played Little League on is still up there. Vets Park. I played Babe Ruth on there, played Pop Warner. We played Pop Warner games up there and at Monroe Street Field. It was just it was a time of innocence, but, at the time we didn't really realize. Going to high school in Little Falls High School, I was in the second class that went up there in 1971, and public high school, the 70s, it was 2 years after, after Woodstock. It was
a little wild.
It was a little wild in many ways. Good ways, though, because I met a lot of lifelong friends. And
I thought I was going to say ladies for a minute there.
No. We were.
I met a lot of ladies.
Well,
you were saying Woodstock, so
I'm down over their detention now.
I was 14, Dave. Okay? So, but hey, But we had a lot of great people. I'm having my 50th high school reunion this summer at Canal Days.
Wow.
Which, just like I said yesterday, I don't know if I told Dave this, or I don't know who I told yesterday, but we had the senior grad walk yesterday, and I went from being a senior 50 years ago to being a senior citizen in like a blink of an eye, and that kind of his kind of, hit me a little bit. But I graduated in 1975. We had 150 kids in the class, give or take one or two, and graduated in June of 75, and in January of 76, the school, a horrific fire.
Right.
Horrific fire. And we had the open classroom concept, which meant coming from a Catholic school with strict Catholic nuns instruction, got a good education. I went to an open classroom with free time, free periods, almost like a collegiate schedule, which was something that I probably shouldn't have had.
Culture shock right there.
It was culture shock. But I made it through high school, and I had a great education, never knowing that I would return here, years later in 2008, the greatest, honor of my life, coming back to be an administrator in Little Falls District.
Sure.
It was a treat.
Well, I mean, even the school system was different back then too, because today you have Benton Hall Academy, of course, in the high school, and the Christian Academy, but back then it was Monroe Street School, Jefferson Street School. You went to St. Mary's,
so Church Street School too.
Yeah, Church Street School. That's right.
Yeah, so there was a lot of schools.
Yeah,
a lot of kids. Yeah.
Students today wouldn't even recognize.
No. And the population was. I don't know what exactly the population was. I think it might have been like 8,000, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
At that time,
right
about
around
7,
there.
about 8,000. Yeah.
But it seemed like, it was just always a small town, but it just had that feel, and we were Little Falls. And when I came back here, I live in the town of Frankfort, but no offense to Frankfort, it's a nice community. I'm not a Maroon Knight. I'm a Mountie through and through.
The man bleeds purple. That's all there is to it.
That's it. I bleed purple. I do. I don't want to bleed too much, but I bleed purple. Okay.
If it's purple, it means it's been out there a while.
Right. Exactly.
So you're graduating from high school. How did you come about deciding what you wanted to do?
Well, I always wanted to. I always liked to draw. I mean, when I was younger, my dream was I wanted to play baseball. That's all I cared. I lived and breathed baseball. But the only thing, I was not fast. I couldn't throw that hard. I could catch the ball. I couldn't hit a curveball for my life. So I figured that wasn't going to happen. So I realized I'm not going to be a major leaguer, or even, maybe even not make the high school team, which I didn't. I didn't make the high school team either. But anyway, that was my first. But I always loved to draw. I always loved to draw cartoons. And I always did that. Unfortunately, I did it often when I should have been paying attention to my classes.
Yeah.
And I remember
it was that open room concept.
Yeah, I
was.
blame it all on that. My physics teacher, my chemistry teacher said, "Mr. Long, you'd probably do a lot better in chemistry if you stopped drawing those cartoons." And I said, probably.
And kept right on doing
them off. You should have drawn the periodic chart.
That's what I should have.
There you go.
I say, now you tell me. But I always loved doing that. And then I went to work. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be in the arts field. So I went to Mohawk Valley Community College. They had an advertising design and production course. It was a 2-year degree, an associate's degree. So I did that. And I was in there with a lot of really great artists. I'm a cartoonist, but I still, I met a lot of great people. I had some really great instructors. But then what was I going to do after that? Well, I needed a job, obviously. I was 19, out of college, 2-year college. And I went the Evening Times here in Little Falls, which was an established daily paper. And I went there, and and they needed somebody because I don't know if somebody quit or whatever. So I went there, and I worked as a graphic artist, meaning I did everything there, a lot of different things. I didn't report any news. I was not a reporter, but I did a lot of the camera work for the printing. I did a lot of in the printing process. I did, some graphics. I did all those different kind of things. Worked with a great team, but before I knew it, I blinked and 19 and a half years had gone by. Wow. And I said, holy cow. But I also drew cartoons, and they would let me draw cartoons. And I don't know if I came up with it, but long shots they were called. And they were sports, and they were editorial cartoons, and I'm sure they were pretty rustic. But I did those, and I did like maybe 2 or 3 a week. And I enjoyed doing that. I didn't get paid for it, but, I did it. And it was just an added part of my job. And I really loved doing that. I did some freelance work too. I did something for Baseball America. I did for them.
Oh, that's interesting.
I did it for not knowing I was going to be a teacher one day. I did it for the New York State United Teachers. They had a newspaper, a statewide newspaper. So I did it for them for a few years. I did it for the OD. I did a couple years for them, like a weekly cartoon. And it was just, something that I love to do. I got, freelance, some stuff like that. But it was just a thing that I love to do. Now, the weird part is I'm starting to go back to that now. After retiring, I'm getting more into drawing cartoons. And there are a lot of great topics to draw editorial cartoons about. So I've started to do that. And I'm approaching some different, outlets, but I don't know. I don't want to get paid for them. I just
I was waiting for that. He's waiting for me that I do pay, and it would be wonderful if this outlet were able to, since you're sitting here, and I'm not going to let you out unless you say yes.
Right, okay. I would love to, and I wasn't saying that for you, Dave, but I appreciate
you were.
that.
Well, Joe, you noticed the lighting changed in here because the light bulb went on over his head.
But that's what I love to draw, and I said I don't need to get paid or anything. I like to do it, and
you've seen that we have Emma Canistar.
She's wonderful,
and she's doing one every 2 weeks.
She is wonderful.
She comes up with the concept herself, and she's getting paid, Joe. Just think about it.
That's fantastic.
She's not going to go to college on it, but she is getting paid.
And I'm not going to college anymore either. Okay. But no, she's great, and I know. I look at the paper. I online, and I get the physical paper. Yep. Something about that physical paper. I love.
I still feel the same way myself. Yeah.
But that's so it's interesting. All these different things. I just want to do and. I love school. I'll never forget it. But, it's time for me. People say when you retire, when it's time to retire. And I never thought I'd retire. I thought I thought they'd have to drag me out kicking and screaming. But, I just know it's time. I just do.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't mean that still won't happen.
That's true. That is true, Dave. Kicking and screaming. I want to leave. No, I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
You said July, huh?
July. We're going to make it June. I don't know. June 11th. No, I don't know. But anyway. But that's my story. That's about all I got.
Well, we're going to pull more out of you.
Pull more out of me. Okay.
So you said you were 19 and a half years at the Evening Times.
Yes, I was.
It was basically after that period of time, it was just kind of time to go and try something new.
Well, you know what happened? I'll tell you, I never been unemployed in my life. Well, I'm going to be soon again, but I was never unemployed in my life. And it was bought by the same outfit. It was a small chain that the Times was part of. And there were rumblings that, newspaper business is what it is. It's a tough business. And at that time, we're going back to 1997, the Telegram, which was in Herkimer, was based in Herkimer. Their outfit, their chain was looking to purchase our chain or buy the Times. And we all saw the writing on the wall kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So people were starting to, know that, it's kind of the end.
They were jumping ship a little bit. Yep.
So I remember, and this is a true story, Donnie Pepperella. I love Donnie Pepperella. He was my boss. And he's still in Little Falls. He still, I think, is working too. He's a great guy. And I said, and I know I got a call to go down to Donnie's office. And this was, I'll never forget it. It was June of 1997. So that's, 28 years ago. Yeah. And he said, and there was a guy from corporate there. And I never see the guy before. I never saw him since. But he was the one who was going to tell me, basically, Joe, you're out. But I knew that, they were just dissolving and consolidating and all that stuff. So I came down. And this guy was talking to me, and they thought I was going to, like, I don't know, be devastated. I was, 39, I think at the time, 38, 39. And he said, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" I said, I am okay. I said, and he said, "Well, you know what you want to do?" And I had, at the time, my son was, I think, 5, maybe 4.
That's a tough time.
And, I'm thinking of his college education.
Sure.
My wife is tremendous. She's, she retired. She still subs. She's not subbing today, but she subs a lot at Benton Hall. She taught for 34 years in Frankfurt, and she was teaching. So we have a new family, young family, and I'm thinking about my son, my wife. But then I said, I'm going to be a teacher. I said that. I'll never forget that. I had no clue how that was going to happen. But the thing is, with the support of a lot of people, my wife especially, I went back to school for like over 2 years, full time. I was doing some freelance stuff on the side. But that was tough because I worked my whole life. And here I am pushing 40 and I'm out of work. But she was great and is still great.
That's what they call a midlife crisis when it happens right around 40, right?
I tell you. Yeah. And I remember the first day I was unemployed, and I laid there. I was laying there in the bed, and I was like, I should be getting up for work, but there is no work, and I was like just sitting there or laying there. But thanks to my wife, and she's so supportive. Thanks to people who had faith in me, I went to school and I had a lot of support. I was able to get some funding through the, like displaced workers thing,
Yep.
and all of that. And I said to my wife, thank God. And it went by. Our son, too, he was a little boy, but, everybody was so supportive, my family, my in-laws. And 2.5 years went by fast. And then I was looking for a job.
Now, when you went back to college, where'd you go?
This is the thing. I went to, I always tell people it's never too late. And I went to, I was calling schools, cold calling schools around here. Utica College, SUNY, MVCC, Herkimer. They were all very friendly, very nice. I had an appointment with Utica College, and I went and talked to some very nice people. They told me what it was going to cost, finally. And I was not being rude. And I said, thank you so much. And he says, you have all the information? I said, yes. He says, will we see you again? I said, and I didn't say it to be mean or a wise guy, but it kind of came out that way.
Oh, hell no.
I said, I just can't keep my mouth shut sometimes. I said to the gentleman, I said, thank you for your time, but the only way I'm going to be able to come back is if I hit the lottery on the way home. And that was it. And that's a true story. So I went home and I was pretty, a little down. My wife was at school, working. Our son was, I think, at preschool. And I was sitting in our living room.
Sounds
alone.
like a day drinking moment.
It was like, and I don't drink, but I was going to start then. I'll tell you, it was something. But I sat there.
It's time for a new experience.
Yes, I made some cold calls, and I found out about the Oneonta, the SUNY Oneonta Bridge program that was housed at MVCC. They would have Oneonta professors come.
Okay.
So you get an Oneonta degree, and I think they still have it. I'm pretty sure they still have it. And thank God for that, because I enrolled that day. There was a class starting that night. And I took my first college class. It was out in Rome. And I drove there, and I said to my wife when she got home, I said, hey, I guess I'm a college student again. And I went there and I took a class that summer. I think I took 1 or 2 classes. Then I matriculated that fall, and I was never so scared. Besides, when I married my wife, I was never so scared. I was like, I was so nervous, like going out, like a kindergartner going out to the first day of school, and I was 40, almost 40. But they were so great, and I was not the only. I love that. Instead of saying old people coming back to school, they call them returning adult students.
Right.
That's what I was, and there were others, and and it was just great, and I learned a lot. I was pushed past my comfort level many, many times, but it was great. And then I got my master's through Cortland. And I always say I got my bachelor's through Oneonta. I never took a class at Oneonta. I got my master's degree from Cortland. I never took a class at Cortland. I took them all in Rome and, Utica.
Interesting.
Rome. So I tell people, and now it's even with online or, getting degrees online, and it's even, so I tell people, don't get despondent here, really. And I said, and if I can do it,
Anybody can do it.
That's true. That's very true. Anybody.
Right.
So it's true. Very true. So, yeah, and a lot of support. A lot of people who took chances on me when I got my first job at Mount Markham. It was a second grade. It was almost the end of August, and I needed a job, and I didn't want to sub anymore. And I went there, and the principal, and I interviewed. I had some disastrous interviews. One of my first disastrous interviews was at Benton Hall Academy, and with great people, but I blew that interview. And then I had another interview at Herkimer. I blew that one too. And then I had a few others that were just kind of courtesy interviews. So I learned about that. But then I had one, I said, I'm just going to relax and be myself. So I interviewed at Ilion. I didn't get the job, but I felt really good about that. They were very nice, and I just felt comfortable. I said, this is me, better or worse, whatever. And I went to, I didn't get that job, but I think I came kind of close, but I didn't get it. And then I went to Mount Markham, West Winfield, never having been there. And they were just so comfortable, and I think they were really stretching. They needed a body in a classroom, too.
Sometimes it's right place, right time.
Yeah. And the thing is, I always look at myself when I interview people, too, in my position. Now, I feel bad for them. I always do, because I see me sitting in that chair. And I said, would I have hired an almost 40-year-old guy to teach second grade? And I don't know. Hopefully I would. But they did. And I worked there, and that's a really nice district, nice school. But at that time, they were in the process. This is 2000, I think it was. They were in the process of closing the Leonardsville. They had 2 elementary schools down there. Okay. They were closing it. I said, what does that mean for me? I'm thinking, well, I was the last one hired. So when they brought the teachers over, Joe, we like you. We'd love to keep you, but there's no room for you. I said, okay. So I went back to Ilion. I went to Behringer Road. I had heard they had an opening. They were going to have an opening or two. So I remember going there, and I drove from West Winfield to Ilion very fast. I did. And I got there, and Mr. Zito, who was the principal, Sam Zito, wonderful guy. And I said to him, I chased him in the parking lot. He was walking to his car.
With your car or without?
No, without my car.
I was just saying,
that's actually when I used to run.
Give me the job or I'm going to run you down.
Exactly.
Here we go.
He drove this big, beautiful green Cadillac, and I saw it. And he was walking to it, so I ran to him. I said, Mr. Zito. I said, and I had to catch my breath. I said, Mr. Zito, I hear there's a possible job. I said, and I had interviewed with him the year before. And he says, don't worry, Joe. He says, you'll get an interview. So I went, because I was scrambling. So I had an interview, and thank God they hired me to teach second grade again. So I worked there for a while, for 8 years. I think it was 8 years there, 7-8 years. And I loved it. I loved Behringer Road. I loved the people I worked with. I loved the kids. And I ran into a dad just yesterday of some kids I had up in Aldi's in Ilion. And he says, how you doing, Joe? And I'm thinking, who is this? I know this guy. And then he mentioned the kids. I said, oh, Mr. And he's just a great guy and great kids.
Well, you don't remember the adults, it's the kids.
The kids are the ones. The kids, and they're doing great. His son is one son is a fighter pilot, I guess. The other son is a game warden, a conservation officer. The daughter is coaching college lacrosse, and it's great to hear those things. I get the biggest kick out of that.
Oh, wow.
Well, I know that my cousin Emily Lalonde. Well, she was
Emily's your cousin?
Then. She was one of your students. She loves you. Every time I see her, she still talks about you.
Emily was the last valedictorian of the Ilion School District. And what a nice family. What a nice kid. And I knew in 5th grade, I said, that girl's going to be the valedictorian or salutatorian. She's going to go far. What a wonderful young lady she is. Yeah, say hi to her for me.
Absolutely.
Great
I will.
Lady. I didn't know that. Yeah, so that's great. So that's it. I'm pretty much, and then I got the thing, I ran into Mr. Petray, who I didn't really know. Lou Petray, who was the superintendent before Keith, and great man too. And he said, I saw him in church in Utica. I was glad I went to church that Sunday. Yeah. And I was with my son, and he said, Joe, come here. So he called me into the pew after mass.
I thought you were going to say into the booth.
That's what I thought.
I was like, holy cow. So I went,
wow. Talk about an on-the-spot interview.
I thought I was in confession because they were saying, and he said, Joe, there's some openings. This is 2008. There's some openings at in Little Falls. And he said, "You're thinking about applying for them?" I said, "Well," I don't know if I'm ready, Mr. Petray. And he says, "Look, just no, go ahead."
Is this a teaching or is this
no
going to administration?
Administrative.
Okay.
So I said, "Oh man," and it was all rushing at me. But I said, "Well, let me think about it." He says, "All right, just think about it." So I went home and I told my wife. I was just so honored that he thought of me. And I said, Mr. Petray, superintendent, or he's going to be superintendent. That's when he became superintendent. He wants me to come and interview. And my wife said, "Well, Joe, you going to interview?" I said, "No." And she said, "What?" I said, "No, I'm just happy that he asked me." I said, "I'm going to keep teaching." He says, "Joe, you went through principal school," which I got the degree there too, the further, the certification. And he says, "That's kind of what I said, "I'll think about it." So the last day that you could apply for it.
The window was open.
The window was open. Mm-hmm. I did. And he called me. I was called for an interview. I'll never forget. There was a blizzard. It was a snow day.
Oh, wow.
Up on the hill. I hadn't been up on the hill in the winter in many, many, many years. I went up there. It was like the North Pole. I said, "I'm gonna."
It is like it up there.
Reindeer around you.
I thought like a polar bear would walk in front of me. I just didn't know where I was going. And so I got in there, and the interview went fine. And then I thought I did okay. And then I became the assistant at Benton Hall. And it was, that was an adventure. I worked with great people who as colleagues and as teachers and as students. My first group of students, the fifth graders there are pushing 30 now. They have to be. And
wow.
Yeah.
Was there a network? In other words, why did he approach you? How would he have heard? Did all the principals or potential principals or administrators all talk like gossip about this guy Joe Long? He's down here in Ilion teaching second grade. He really needs to be a principal, right?
I'd like to say that's what happened. But his wife, Suzanne, what a wonderful lady. She was an aide or an assistant at Behringer Road. And I didn't really know Mr. Petray. I only met him that time in church. I would ask about him because I heard what a great guy he was. And so I think she recommended that.
Okay,
I think
all right.
Through Mrs. Petray, and I guess she thought I was a good guy.
I just wondered how that connection was made. Why he would just ask you out of the wild blue.
That's what I wondered too.
Yeah. You still wonder.
I still wonder sometimes. Thank God he did.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So how long have you been principal at Benton Hall then?
This is the end of my 15th year as principal. Before that, I was 2 years as assistant. It was the first time I ever had a title. It was assistant district administrator K through 12. That's what it was. And I said, "What is that?" Basically, I think it was the guy who did the stuff the other people couldn't do, or didn't want to do.
Didn't want to do.
Right. So, but they helped me a lot, and I work with some great people. Holy cow! And there were administrators who are still in the district who are there. There's actually the teachers too, and some people have retired. Some great people. I don't know if I'll drop some names. Brian Coleman, Mr. Petray. Cleet McLaughlin, others. We're talking people who just phenomenal. Maria Lindsay, who's now at Herkimer, who was a teacher and then became an administrator. I'm just so proud to have worked with these folks because they're really, really good people, and they really know what they're doing, and they have done a lot for me, just like the people I work with now. The other principals and superintendents, assistant superintendents. Just, I don't profess to be the smartest guy in the world. And I really I surround myself. I think that's what it is. Surround myself hopefully with really smart people, or am surrounded with. So that helps me a lot. Covers up my mistakes.
That's the hallmark of a great leader, right there. Though, giving credit to the people that he works with and people that are around him.
It's true. It is true. Really, true that they're good.
Yeah,
really good.
Absolutely. So, with all this time and education that you have, what are some of the big changes that you've seen from the time you started as an educator to the time that you're retiring, both good or bad? It doesn't matter.
Good. Well, the good is I see people who are so dedicated. I always said a lot of our kids, they have a lot stacked against them, and they're so strong and resilient. Just when I think that I'm, a strong man or really, really, have it together, I look at these little 7 or 8 year old kids, and they go through some really tough things. And they're so resilient. They come with a smile on their face every day, and they're amazing to me. They inspire me. I noticed that hasn't changed. Kids are kids. They want to be kids. They want to have fun. They want to learn. They want organization. They want to be kept in line. They want to toe the line, as they say. They want that. But they also, you can't fool them. You cannot fool a kid. If they know you don't care about them, they're not going to. And that's a tough one. Even kids I have to discipline. I say, listen, I'm not doing this because I want to, because I like doing it, but you know what's right and what's wrong. And they do. That still stays the same. The city of Little Falls, I love it. And I never knew how much I loved it till I came back to it in 2008. Having been away from it since 1997, basically. I mean, I'd come through town, but it's a wonderful town. Kids love to play. They're loved. They're loved in our school. That's the one thing that I really take seriously, extremely seriously. The things that maybe on the downside, I noticed in the world. I don't know if it's the world. I don't know if it's just in the upstate New York. There's more challenges for families. There's more. There's broken homes. There's single-family homes. Doesn't mean they don't love their kids. Doesn't mean they're not good people.
Sure. It's just more challenging.
More challenging. There's some. I used to say there are some substances around that people shouldn't fool around with. Mm-hmm. And you see that, and that really bothered me. It still bothers me sometimes. Some children have lost their parents to that, and it's just these parents are somebody's children too. And that always has bothered me and haunted me. When you see things, you say, I hope that this doesn't happen. And when it does, it's awful. Those kind of challenges, people working hard, trying to feed their family, trying to do their laundry, challenges, that I take for granted, it's hard. The economy is what it is, but I think kids are the same. I think the world is more challenging for them. I do.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. So let's say one of your students comes back to you and says, Mr. Long, I see you've become a success. You've done a great job. What do I have to do to become a success in whatever field I want to do?
Well,
what would you tell them?
What I would tell them is this. I tell them, first of all, don't ever, ever, ever sell yourself short. Never. And I had to learn that because I don't know. When I came out of high school in 1975, I thought the world was waiting for me. I learned pretty quick it wasn't. But I also know that you can accomplish things. You might not get exactly what you want, but you can accomplish things, and you can become a fine citizen. You can become a responsible parent. You can, all those things. If you do, you do. I mean, things work out sometimes you can't control. But I would always tell people, don't ever. I told somebody that the other day. I said, you can become a teacher. You don't. If you want to be a teacher, you can be a teacher. If you want to, whatever you want to do. Now, you might want to be president or play for the Yankees. That might not work out. But you can do something else. Dr. Levatino, he says things, and I always quote it wrong. But it's you fall where you land where you're supposed to fall, or something like that. And that's kind of what it is, I think that don't get discouraged either, 19 and a half years, I thought. But, right now, it's a new adventure too, I would tell that to anybody.
Dr. Levatino's a very smart guy, big hockey fan.
I know that.
So
I know that. He's an Islanders fan, isn't he?
Exactly. Yes. He's all excited now because they got the number one pick. So.
Yes.
But no, that's very, very prudent advice. I mean, because life really is not a straight line.
It's not.
It's a lot of zigzags all over the place.
I like to say, Scott, I always say, I took a circuitous route to where I am, which is a fancy way of saying I kind of wandered and stumbled, and a lot of people were there to help me. And ask for help. I never stop asking for help. I was in Dr. Levatino's office today asking for help. So it happens all the time.
What do I say during this podcast? To not get myself in trouble.
Yes. That's true.
He doesn't
I'll tell
know
you what you do. Don't answer Dave.
Don't answer
That's
Dave.
What you do.
He would have said that.
Yeah. But no, it's a lot of a lot of great people.
So as you go into retirement, and you'll be enjoying retirement. Yeah. And, of course, people down here will miss you. They will still talk about you. How do you hope that Joe Long is remembered?
Well, I joke about legacy. I joke about that. I mean, you want to have a legacy. I just want to be known as somebody who did his best. Always, always, always loved the school, loved the kids in the school. Tried to be fair. Sometimes I made mistakes. I know that. Sometimes I maybe acted a little bit. I should have done this when I did this, but I just want to be remembered as that, somebody who did his best. Wasn't like with baseball, I wasn't the fastest, smartest, cutest, whatever. But I made the most of what I had, and I just want to encourage people that everybody can do that. That's everybody's got. If I can, I guess, be successful or be, happy, which is the true definition of being successful. If you're happy, I could, you can do it. I mean, I've met a wonderful woman. 35 years, the end of this month. It's like, I have a wonderful son. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. There's no reason why a kid can't be the luckiest kid in the world or the luckiest adult when they grow up.
Wonderful advice. Wonderful. And of course, we're both big sports fans, so you're going to have a lot of time to be aggravated by the Yankees and the Cowboys now.
You bet. I'm already getting aggravated. Even though they won last night, I'm still aggravated.
I'm still aggravated from the weekend, though, when you dropped 2 or 3 against Boston on national TV.
Wait a minute. Did you say Cowboys?
Cowboys.
He's a Cowboys fan.
I love the
Cowboys. You didn't tell me that?
I love the Cowboys.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my gosh.
There's 2 of us then.
2 of us.
2?
There's more. There's more.
I was going to say there's about 2,000 around here alone. What are you talking about? 2 of us. Try being a Rams fan. That's
you want
to talk about being alone on an island.
That's your mistake. We're the Kings.
Well, hey, we got championships. That's what keeps me company. All right. So
there you go. So you're good. I just, I just love watching this. I love the Yankees. I love the Cowboys. I often think maybe I should get another team. Nope, I'm not. I can't do it. It's just.
No way.
I do root for Buffalo up here when the Cowboys aren't involved.
Yeah, and that's
it's my second team. As soon as Brady left New England, I was done with that.
I know the Bills. The Bills are. I hope they do well, but
Just not when they play Dallas.
Not when they play Dallas. That's what. Exactly.
I'm so torn.
I don't know. I'm terrible. There's nothing more. I hate to say it. I say this. Obnoxious. Nothing more obnoxious than Yankee or Cowboy fans. I'm one of them. I'm one of them.
It's all right, though. Well, it keeps it interesting.
Scott, you don't even know I grew up a Yankees fan. Yeah. Even being in Massachusetts,
Red Sox. Grew up in Massachusetts.
I couldn't tell anybody I was a Yankee fan.
No, you can't.
I mean, they would beat me up.
I know. Everybody asked me, he said, I'd love to see a game at Fenway Park, but I don't, especially if they're playing the Yankees there. I don't know if I'd survive.
I'd love to see a game at Fenway too, but I couldn't go see them play the Yankees.
There's
no way.
I don't.
No way.
I know.
Gosh.
Yeah, that's a challenge right there. Getting out with your head.
Yeah. Especially the Yankees gear on.
No, thanks.
I do that. My wife and I go to Maine. I'm terrible. We go to Maine. We try to get there every year. And I wear my Yankee shirts all the time. And it's full. It's crawling with Red Sox fans. All Red Sox fans.
Oh, yeah.
And occasionally I'll see a Yankee fan on the street or on the beach, and I'll say...
And you hug each other.
We hug each other. We're like we're old brothers. It's like...
I've known you my whole life.
I always said, Joel, can you just stop? I said, I don't know. So anyway.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, boy. Well, like I said, you're going to have a lot of time to enjoy it now, and I hope that you come back down to visit the area.
I will,
because
definitely.
Like I said, you're going to be missed. That's for sure.
And I'm going to miss everything and everybody. I am. I said I can. No looking back. I say, but that's easy to say. That's just bravado on my part.
Sure.
I'm gonna, definitely. I've been blessed, and it's. Somebody told me the other day. I heard it twice in one day. They said, the days go slow, but the years go fast. And boy, I tell
true.
You,
that's a good one.
It's so
and
true.
I never heard that. I heard it twice in one day, and I'm poof. I don't know.
They had sticky notes up in the bathroom. Tell Joe Long this.
Tell Joe Long. Tell him that. Maybe he'll remember that. I did. So.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to come over here and talk to us.
Yeah.
Enjoy retirement because you've certainly earned it and deserved it, no doubt.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
you so much, both of you.
All right, that's all the time we got for today. Thank you for watching and for listening, and we will see you next time.